We are the Institute for Intuitive Intelligence, revolutionizing intuition by training spiritually fierce women globally as qualified intuitive guides. Subscribe for the leading research and teachings on the conversation of intuition development.
Hello, dear beloveds. I am so delighted to be hanging out with you today and also hanging out with these goddesses, or priestesses, I should call them, priestess mystic leaders, more specifically. We have the privilege at the moment of being in real life together for the Excellence Collective Retreat. Laura Alcaslassi over there, gorgeous woman who is not on camera right now, but she and I have had the privilege of serving an incredible group of women, entrepreneurs, business owners, who some of whom have also come through the third level program. And I thought, well, why don't we hang out and talk about it a little bit, getting to introduce you or show them off to you. They're probably well known to many of you because they're all a bit celebrity in their own right, and gorgeous. We'll just bookend the celebrities. Yeah, we have identified the celebrity archetype in these two, which is no surprise if you know them, because if any woman that I know could change the world, it would be these two. They are just spectacular. When did you guys do the third level? Because you were in the same group, yeah?
We were to begin. So we started in 2018.
Yeah.
And
I got impregnated. And,
not by me.
Had a third level baby.
the only male ever on a third level retreat.
He was.
Yeah.
Little Phoenix. And then I was able to very kindly, because I needed some mama time. So I had 6 months out. So I was very grateful to join the next intake. So I got 2 beautiful sister groups of women, and it was actually an amazing time to do it, going through birthing and my third baby, and I did struggle with depletion, and just having the sisters and the tools throughout that process, I came out of it pretty quickly. Out of the darkness into the light pretty quickly, because I was surrounded by women and I have the tools, and it was the constant check-in, it was the constant and I had to take the time, but it was all meant to be.
Yeah. And look, I really loved that we could support you in that way, and we do stand for mothers being able to do this work, because that mystic mother archetype, like we've had Carla from Luxembourg came to Bali with her baby, but she was breastfeeding, and I don't want her to miss out because she's a breastfeeding mother, and when you needed more time, of course, like we're not going to penalize us for what we're doing as mothers on this path, because it's really hard to be a mother and a mystic at the same time.
But they're so connected. In fact, I love the journey between maiden, mother, mystic, and that it actually is a full cycle. This is our beautiful maiden right here.
But I'm really grateful for you having a willingness to keep going as well, even though it would have been easy to say, because it wasn't a planned impregnation.
No. I paid the third level on my credit card, so I couldn't cancel. And then got married, and it was like surprise, and I was so in shock. He was not on my vision board, okay? So
he had his own vision.
I was just like, it was not in my plan. But now I look back almost 3 years later, and I'm incredibly grateful for the journey. He's such a divine soul. And I'm so much stronger and more in my power as a result of that journey.
And I want to talk about where you're at with it now, but I will hear a little from these two about when they came in and what was going on. But you are doing a unique thing of bridging this content now, taking it into the corporate world, which is so needed and so exciting. But let's just have a little chat then about like when you did your intake.
Well, I was in the shit show. That was 2020 last year.
She doesn't mean the program. She means 2020 for all of us.
Yes, it was a shit show.
But it was the year that everything changed in the program as well. So
I can't imagine, as much as it was challenging to do it at that time, there just was no other way, really, was there? It's, chicken or the egg. Was it the program that got me through 2020 as effortlessly as I did sail through it with 4 kids? Or was it, 22, it was just the best. It really
or
was
2020 made you make the most of that opportunity. I understand what you mean, because it forced me to up level.
Absolutely.
And it was seismic changes very, very quickly, and your group all said yes, even though it was like no more retreat, all these expectations, because we really talk up the retreat, because it's no longer a part of it, and I do think it's a better program. But as we're experiencing, there's some great listen in real life.
It was a sales thing for me that got me
yeah.
through the door was the retreat idea,
Yeah,
but it wasn't needed with the way that the program was delivered. And I think sisterhood, that's the beauty of having technology like we have at our disposal nowadays. I don't think that my relationship with my sisters was any less
No.
because it was online. Perhaps if not a little bit more, because there is that little sense of security when you are behind a screen a little bit as well. It's easier to be.
And it's only a week out of a year. And that's
Yeah.
the thing, that the connections had to still be established
Absolutely.
after the retreat and before the retreat.
Yeah.
But I do really honour that group's bravery for being willing to say yes, because I had to create it as I was going, you know, and it was...
But you never have known that though. It was like it was literally always as it was supposed to be. I can't imagine it having been any different.
Yeah. Giant pregnant, you weren't giantly pregnant then, but
I was.
heavily pregnant Leonie in the, you know, Balinese shala on the top floor with no air conditioning, and we were fasting during the day.
I have a lot of spring rolls.
It was pretty amazing. And so you finished at the beginning of this year or the end of last year?
End of last year.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. And, you know, still there's always that period, there's the program and then there's the period after the program. Yeah. And I think that's such a precious space. Yeah. It can't be rushed, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's, absolutely. And it's a privilege to watch that. And what about you? You started?
Yeah, in 2018 in January and completed 12 months later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd love to ask then, what's changed as a result of the program?
Everything, my entire life. Like, my business has changed, my personal life has changed, my relationships have changed. But I would say that the most noticeable change for me personally, because all of that can be seen externally, but it would be the trust in myself. Like that trust in myself, first of all, to go, I don't know what, like everybody else seems to say, I don't know why, but I have to do this program. On top of like just that decision to trust that, I don't doubt myself. I wouldn't say I don't ever doubt myself, but it is a completely different experience.
Yeah. And it's like Lara said before in our other interview, when that doubt rises, you know how to work with it now. And so you're not a victim to that. You don't destroy things unintentionally because you're just in a chaotic state. Maybe for 5 minutes.
Maybe for 5, maybe 7 minutes.
Yeah. And you are also one of our postgrads in our, you are the Back to Macho Scholarship recipient, and you are now 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still quite unsure how that's the case because time is a little blurry in that, but yes.
Yeah. And the postgrads are taking another level of qualification to become spiritual directors, but also that ongoing business mentoring, which, as we've discovered here and you know well, is like that constant sense of like, you know, what else is possible, kind of keeping you a little bit agitated. I think that's our role, isn't it, Laura?
Totally.
Agitate them. And we're very excited about the next postgrad as well, because we're going to be doing even more agitation. It's going to be fun. You know, intentional.
Like Laura's risotto. Agitate.
Yeah. Just keep agitating. Yeah. But, you know, you get great risotto. And you get great priestess mystic leaders.
Yeah.
So what's the most significant change for you then, my darling?
It's interesting. I don't think you can just go, it's one thing. You know, it's not like just one thing happened. I think it's just this, like, meeting your fair is something that we need to take ownership of, you know, or we're just going to stay in the paddles and the cycles and nothing's going to radically change. And it's just being in your power. And even though the drama and the chaos is going to happen, because you can't control that, can't control COVID or the weather or what your kids do or don't do, you can control your responses, your thoughts, your emotions to a given situation. So it's the tools of the intuitive intelligence trainer. And we have them, so it's like there's no fucking. Oh, I'm sorry. There's no excuse because you have self-ownership and radical responsibility. Yeah. And I choose success, and I choose to be in my power, and I choose to go out there and make radical change.
Yeah. Yes, you do.
Yeah. Yes, I do. Yes,
and I'm
I
not
do.
hiding from that responsibility because you know your capacity to influence is one of the things that I hope you're taking away from this time on the Excellence Collective Retreat, that that's actually your superpower, and just own that, because it is a really important thing that those women who can lead must. Those who can create influence must not shy away from that. And I think we've got three incredibly powerful women in that way here, and I think that is removing that doubt again and again. You've got to keep removing the doubt, and keep telling yourself, yes, that's what I came here for. Like, that's what this life is about. So even though we know it's an impossible question, what's the most significant change?
I think probably to narrow it down for me, I think liberation of my motherhood journey has probably been like a very tangible thing for me. It is lofty, it changes everything, but interpersonal relationships have completely changed. But the one with my children has just become, it's magical to be a mother to my kids. And it wasn't, it was awful before, it was a struggle. But just having the tools, I think, like you're saying, every single thing it's a fear. We parent our children through our fear. That's what we spend most of the time doing, is parenting our fear and not raising our children. So having the tools to be able to, work on my own stuff, meaning that I'm giving them a bit of an easier journey.
Yeah, and we talk about this in sort of spiritual work a lot, that we can heal, 7 generations ahead and 7 behind. But when we understand the way that fear works and how we inherit through the genes and through the expression of the genes, those literal fear stories that are unmet in those who birthed us, it isn't just a nice idea. It is actually, you're breaking a cycle that may never have ever been named, even if there wasn't major trauma or whatever, although most human beings have experience of trauma. It is a responsibility, as you say, to not parent fear, which I love, but to raise children, because it's what you're doing. You're giving that to yourself to give it to them. And you can't do it like, we want to be the greatest parents ever, but we actually have to be the greatest people ever to be the greatest parents.
And just the tools I've got. My 7-year-old suffers from anxiety, and just to see her now, like, on the side of her hand, like, what a gift. I just think, who would I have been had I have been gifted those tools from a young age?
It's very true.
Being taught, as you were saying, Leonie, about the capacity to work with fear rather than be destroyed by fear or defeated by it. And I know that is a huge thing in what you do as a mother, but also as, in your work generally, like that. We aren't given the gifts of understanding fear's true nature. And what is it for you? Like, what happens for you now when fear rises?
I actually welcome it. I'm just not scared by it, because first of all, it's not true, and it's a story. And I used to be very dominated by the story. I used to stand up and be like, I went through a divorce and I was really heartbroken, and I read this book, and I was so in the victim for so long. And I'm obviously we are defined by story, but it's not who we are. It's just a story. And I think when we can really rise out of that and embody a new story, a new identity, a new belief, and really embody who we are. And I've had situations where I've had to surrender my business through motherhood or whatever. And I feel really depressed because I'm not in service. And it's like, so there's that analogy of you're in radical turmoil if you don't step into your truth. And you spend the rest of your life just, not fulfilling that purpose. And that, I think, the third level gives you that power to really radically own it and step into it. And then the magic will happen, because that's what you're magnetizing out to the universe.
Yeah, I love that. And that's the priestess mystic leader archetype. It doesn't matter what you do, whether you charge money for it. It's not about service in the sense of, I've got to figure out what my job description is. It is literally about, my life is here to create something better for others. And there's no limit to how big that ripple might be. You might start with your kids, but inevitably you're going to feel bigger and bigger pulls to serve. And I think, for me, when I reflect on what the third level gives women, it is the eradication of self-doubt. And that absolute certainty of their right to take up that mantle of service. And all of you are beautiful demonstrations of that. But that means meeting fear every single day, right?
Over and over again.
So is there anything that you would like anyone who might be considering the program to know? So if there's anything that you could say to someone who's like, oh, I don't know, or yes, I really want to do it, or it doesn't have to be like all happy, but just what's true for you about that program?
I would say that if I think back to that moment when I was on the fence and I was like, and I'm not going to swear, but I want to.
You can feel better. Everyone else has.
Well, it was like, fuck, how am I going to how am I going to pay for this? That was my biggest fear. My biggest fear was about money. How am I going to make this happen? And I did, and it worked out just fine. And that became the smallest consideration in my journey. It was never about the money in the end. And what happened was my whole life changed. And even though it's a huge full 12 months, it doesn't actually end at the end of the 12 months. And for me, I remember hearing RJ say, like, this is your apprenticeship, babe. Like, this is, it is not yet done. The work is never done. But if that feeling, knowing, and Lara mentioned it earlier, she was like, it was just that full body yes. If you have even just an inkling, if there's no certainty, there actually is certainty if you go a little further below that. And if you trust that, your whole life will change. And I've never met someone who has come out at the end of the third level who I didn't love and adore, because we are all fine. And I cry every time I watch that video of you sharing the 5,000 story, because I'm like, oh my God, it's everybody that I was, that connection is so deep. It's beyond, I can't describe it in words and do it justice.
And here we are.
But
like,
here we are.
3 years later on Magnetic Island, like hanging out. So it's just, you're absolutely right. It's the sisterhood, and it's the beginning, and it's never going to end. It's never going to end. And what really helped me when I was going through a very difficult time of being very depleted was the sisters, and just knowing I had energetic support. You know, and I think that was the missing piece for me. It's the physical support and the community care, but the energetic part of it. I'm never alone, and there's thousands of women doing this with me. It's just really beautiful. So even when you're in those moments where I don't know what to do, like, there was no fence. I just dived straight in. There was no, and I didn't even know why, but my heart was yes. And when we can truly listen to that and not sabotage it, because your intuition is like 3 seconds, right? Like, you get the guidance, and if you don't act on it, you then spend the rest of your life going, why didn't I do that? So just, it's like you dive in, and what's the worst that can happen?
I'm not going to answer that.
I think that too, coming from a background of like no idea, no intuitive intelligence, hadn't read the book, hadn't done any of the things. Like, I found myself in this position, and I think I remember reading all of the stories, and I say this so often, but and after the third level, there was me, and there was this before the third level, but it actually is, it's an undeniable, very true fact. And if anyone's sitting in their life feeling unhappy, or like they don't have a purpose, or any of those feelings that we all feel because we're born into this culture that values us when we're falling and shit and in our smallness. But if anyone's sitting in that right now, it's just that bit of a shake to be like, it doesn't actually have to be that way. And it really doesn't have to be that way. There really is no excuse for it to be that way.
And it doesn't have to be terrible either.
No, it's no. Stand, everything you're given here is just, it's easy to put into your own life, isn't it? The tapping, it's easy add-in stuff.
And I choose to awaken through bliss, not suffering. And I think that's a radical choice that you
I
can
suffered. Through that.
But we do suffer. We're human. We're conditioned to suffer. We're conditioned to connect through our suffering. I just choose to awaken through joy. And it's a conscious choice.
And I think that is the awareness that you gain through these tools and through the philosophy, is that whatever I'm experiencing now in response to the external stimuli is a choice. I don't get to choose necessarily, but I do get to choose how I respond. And that is freedom. And I think, the women who come into this program are as diverse as you three, as the women we met earlier today, but it isn't about a qualification, or you do get one, or you get a very good one, but it's so much about the intangible aspects that you're sharing, that overcoming that doubt, overcoming that fear, overcoming those suffering stories to emerge into your gloriousness and do whatever the fuck you want with that. Like, there's no prescriptive limit on that. And I think that's what excites me, is every woman, professionally or personally, is going to benefit from getting less afraid of her own power. And that's what I think we deal in, right? We're power markets, but we want to distribute it evenly. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything last thing you'd like to say, any of you? Anything that's just jumping out before we...
It's just what you can do with the tools. Like, as we mentioned before, I never thought I'd be teaching in the corporate world. I left the corporate world 12 years ago, and I'm back in the corporate world, which is really needed because of COVID and all the things that are happening. Teaching the tools of the intuitive guide.
Yeah, yeah,
Because if you struggle with self-regulation, or you don't know who you are, or you can't manage stress, it's all intuitive intelligence.
yes. Yep.
So what you can do with that qualification is extraordinary, whether it's mums, whether it's corporate, whether it's, it doesn't actually matter. Like, the answer really to everything is learn how to control your emotional feeling state, and how to elevate that feeling state in chaos. And that's it.
Yeah. I love that.
I'd like to dovetail off of you said control, and I went, oh, I've got something to say. I really did, coming into that third level journey, think I could control things. I was so wrong, but I'm so glad I was wrong. Like, I'm really grateful that I was misinforming myself, and I look back now, and it's one of those things you can't, it's so difficult to try and explain the journey afterwards, but we do our best to do so. But I like to think that in letting go of that control again and again and again, we are that demonstration of what is possible when you take this work and run at it and run with it and take it with you into everything.
When it runs with you.
Any last thing you want to add, my darling?
No, just eternally grateful, and I'll be eternally grateful for the opportunity to have been there and done it.
Right back at you. Amazing. Thank you for those of you who joined us. Thank you, Laura, for doing your amazingness over there. So much love to you all.
Bye.